Welcome to Lawns Across America, episode 35.
Okay. Barnyard Grass. Woo! All right. Yeah, I'll get you all fired up. I like that. All right. I'm going to get some emails about that one. I know, it's been a couple weeks. Welcome back to Lawns Across America, episode 35. Thanks for hanging in there with me. The reason it's been a couple weeks is I have been traveling. Man, all that screaming, I got to get a water. Hold on. Keep water in a closet behind me over by there. Whew, totally destroyed my throat. All right. So yeah, it's been a couple weeks because I have been on the road. I went to Salt Lake City, and you guys know that, watch the channel, and then I went over to Bozeman. Salt Lake, I met with my YouTube buddies. We did a little Top Golf action over by there. That was really fun to see all those guys. And then even Jake the Lawn Kid came out. He was hanging with John Perry, getting a little business talk going on there. And John's really involved in a lot of ways, and I love that he's helping these young guys with their business and stuff like that. So super cool. And then I also met with the developers that do our app. You guys know we have the app, the Yard Mastery app. And so, you know, there's constant development going on with that. It's only a fraction right now. It's only a fraction of what it's going to be. And so I met with them, and we had to kind of go over the next, roadmap for where we're going over the next 6 months. A lot of stuff we're going to do over the winter, some pretty heavy lifts, they call it. Some heavy lifts in the coding department over there. And really make that thing into something awesome. I mean, so as I've said before, all the stuff that you guys want in the app, we want it too. It's just a matter of you got to kind of prioritize things and understand that when you make one change, it can affect other things you've already built, and it can set you up for success or challenges in the future. A lot of different stuff like that. So met with them and then went to Bozeman. That's where we have an office where we do, merch and stuff like that. Customer service is also done out of there. And Bozeman is such a beautiful place. Wow. You guys that live there, keep that a secret, at least in the summer. I don't know about the winter, but summer was gorgeous. And then we sponsored a golf tournament there for a veterans nonprofit that we work with. And just awesome stuff all around. So it was just good to do that. But then that traveling stopped me from doing the podcast, and then came back, and then literally a week later went out to Minnesota to work with the Minnesota Millennial Farmer. That video just came out on the Lawn Care Nut YouTube channel. So you might want to check that out and see if that's something that's interesting to you. We did some seeding of a big lawn. A lot of seeding projects are done in small lawns. This was a big lawn, new construction, big equipment. So kind of shows you if you're somebody that wants to DIY that. Now, again, he's a farmer. He had a lot of this equipment. But the Harley rake we used, he rented, and the aerator was donated. But you could also rent that. You could rent bobcats. You can rent tractors. These are all things you could rent if you had a big property. I had a couple of people comment on that video. Well, I wish I had all the money to do all that. But I guess I would just say big property, big budget, just kind of how it works. If you don't have that equipment or you don't want to spend the money to rent it, don't get a large property. It's just kind of how that goes. Look at things in that perspective. But showed you how to prepare the seed bed and seed a large lawn. We then use some straw seed mats to put over it. And I got an update from them. They've had some big rains up there, and it all held up real well so far. So KBG, so we won't see any type of results for a good couple, 2-3 weeks. 3 weeks probably more than likely. Now, one other thing I wanted to say is I did release a seeding guide. This is a 30-page guide on how to seed your lawn, but it's more than just how to seed your lawn. Again, this is cool season. Don't worry, warm season, folks. I know I feel like I ignore you. I can see it in the comments. Please don't be like that. I got so much coming up for you, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I got to pay attention to these seeded folks here because they're coming into their window, these cool season folks. And maybe to my detriment, I try to talk to all grass types because I have the ability, knowledge, and experience to do that, but that might also hurt me, I think. Whereas if I just pigeonholed myself to one grass type, might be better. But I gotta talk to all because I love all grasses equally. But we did release that. I did release that seeding guide. That is the very best piece of content I've written this year, I would say. It's all free, but it goes into more than just how to seed. It talks about grass seed types, how to choose the grass seed type based on your situation, what you should do, how to read the label, setting expectations for each different one, what they're good for, starter fertilizer, seed coverings, preparing the seed bed. Do you even need to seed? Some of you don't need to. What if you want to use a pre-emergent with your seed or not? All of that. And then I also wrote a blog post this week, which followed up on that, which was also very detailed. It's on thelawncarenut.com. Just go to the blog section. You'll see it at the top. And that blog there is about weed control before you seed, because a lot of people are spraying weeds now that it's summer, and they're going to seed, say, the first or second week of September. So I wrote a blog that talks about how to know if you could use your weed control leading up to it. And it's not just one of those blogs where I go yes or no. It's where I actually teach you how to find the answer for yourself, because I want you to just be a better lawn care nut in the future. I want you to have a better idea of what you're doing. I want you to have a better strategy. I want you to learn the why behind things. That's really what I try to do. Now, with that, we did come up with a couple other questions I want to answer today. One that's interesting is a lot of people are looking at overseed rates for different grass seed, which we are now carrying grass seed on both Yard Mastery and the Lawn Care. Now, I guess I should correct that too. When we launched our grass seed, we are carrying 3 brands of grass seed, one by MySoil, which is a Kentucky Bluegrass rye blend. We're carrying 4 blends from Jonathan Green. That's a new partnership we made. Love those guys. They fit right in with the Yard Mastery brand, the Yard Mastery kind of, and those are on the Lawn Care Nut too, the seed is. Those fit right in with our idea of working with smaller companies that really focus on DIY first. That is Jonathan Green to a T. And they are in some garden centers across the East, but they're not anywhere, out West. And so we're able to help introduce them to places where they haven't been and let you guys get accustomed to some of their products. So we got their grass seed out there, and then we got Pete's stuff. Pete's stuff is legendary, awesome seed at an affordable price. You could never go wrong with GCI turf. And congratulations to my buddy Pete Denny on crossing 100,000 subscribers just yesterday on YouTube. He was texting me when he was 1 away. I was like, that's so cool. And I tweeted out, let's get him over the top. And then he got over the top. So I take credit for getting him his last subscriber, his 1 subscriber to 100,000. But anyway, when I announced those new partnerships of selling grass seed, some people called me out and said, hey, man, I thought you said you would never sell grass seed. And I find that kind of interesting. I think that's just how the world works. You kind of remember things in a certain way and in a certain context. But I know what I say. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that I haven't contradicted myself in the past, because I'm sure I have. Whenever you have 10 years worth of content out there, you're going to contradict yourself. But I will tell you, I have said for sure, because I've been very careful about this, that I would never put my name on grass seed. That's Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, or Yard Mastery. And you can mark that down. I will never put my name on grass seed, but I will sell other people's seed. The reason I will never put my name on it is because inevitably when grass fails, when a seed job fails, they blame the grass seed manufacturer or supplier or blender, whatever you want to call it. That's where the blame goes. And I'm not going to, and I know that because I worked for True Green for all those years, and we just used to buy our seed from Lesco, good stuff. And it was the same seed I used in my lawn. I used a triple turf type tall fescue blend from Lesco that in my lawn there in Northwest Indiana. I believe the name was Armada. I was talking to Aiden from Aiden's Lawn and Landscape yesterday. He's using that seed, and he says the word Armada is still on there somewhere. So I asked him to send me a picture of it because I didn't know if they still had it. I don't remember what the cultivars were that were in that seed, but that's what we used. That's what True Green used, and it did fine. But it would fail because, especially at True Green, those are people that are not DIYers. They're the opposite of DIYers, and their seed wouldn't grow, and they would blame us, and they'd blame the seed. And I would say, no, you didn't water, bro. That's it. Let me just tell you, mark this down. If your seeding fails and you've read the label and it's not out of date and those types of things, then it's your fault. I'm sorry. You can be mad at me for that. Seed grows. I've grown so many lawns with seed, overseeding. Hundreds, literally, worked on them when I worked at True Green, because even though we had failures, we had a lot of successes. I would aerate. I would overseed. I would set up the people's irrigation for them when they had systems. I would go back and follow up. Tons of them, many of them. This is also why I know it's not that hard to grow grass seed. The key is water. And when grass seeds fail, it's because of lack of water. Or sometimes they could wash away. That can happen too. But it's not the fault of the seed. So that is why I will not put my name on it. Not because of you guys. You guys that listen to this podcast, you are not the ones that are going to come back and go, Alan, the name of your grass seed the grass seed that you put your name on is garbage. You're not going to do that. because you know that the watering is the most important thing. So therefore you're going to water, and therefore you're going to get success. So it wouldn't be you guys, but it would be those people that find the seed from elsewhere, that don't know the lawn care nut, don't follow my instructions, don't really, take investment or take stock into the things that I teach. Those people, they wouldn't water, and they would blame me. So I don't put my name on it. But I'll sell other people's, because then when those people come back and they go, this grass seed didn't grow, I'll be like, well, you got to call Pete. Oh, that's terrible, right? I'm just kidding. We do the best we can with customer service. It's like the person I used to work in the auto business. You have these people, they come in, they haven't changed the oil in their car for 20,000 miles, and something happens, and they want to say that, you sold me a lemon. No, bro, you didn't change the oil, man. That's in any kind of business. And at that point, it doesn't matter. You can't, the customer's always right, that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, just wanted to clarify, my name or my brands will not go on grass seed as far as I'm concerned. So, but we are selling other people's, and we're selling quality stuff. All right, but with that, a question came up that I thought was kind of interesting. And people are looking at the overseed rates. And typically when you have a blend that's mostly Kentucky Bluegrass, your overseed rate is 2 to 3 pounds per thousand. And when you're looking at like a turf type tall fescue, the overseed rate is like 6, maybe even 8 pounds per thousand. People are like, why is that? Why is it that KBG, like when we did the Millennial Farmer, we did a bare ground seeding. That's a 3 pounds per thousand rate. That comes directly from Scott's. By the way, that was the Scott's Pro Vista Kentucky Bluegrass. It's available in limited quantities now. Glyphosate tolerant, deeper, darker blue-green color. They're not sponsoring this, but it's cool stuff. Glyphosate tolerant, man. No weeds. Or no weeds that you can't kill. And then it's also slower grower, which was not my nickname in college. So you can find that if you go to their website, just Google Scott's Pro Vista. I don't know where it's available or how much. I asked them to buy several truckloads because I wanted to sell it, obviously, and they told me no. So when they're telling me no, you're not allowed to buy several truckloads, we're talking, 22 pallets a truck. Figure out, do the math. I was willing to make that capital investment because obviously, why wouldn't I want to be the first to have that online? But they told me no. Thank you, Scott's. So anyway, back to it, the overseed rate for that bare ground was 3 pounds per thousand with that KBG. So why is Kentucky Bluegrass such a low rate? So it goes into the size of the seed. And so I've taken a couple pictures in the guide, or I took one where I showed you the difference in the size of the seeds. Kentucky Bluegrass seeds are literally like, I would say, a sixth of the size of a turf-type tall fescue seed. So to give you an example, we do everything in pounds. And this is just a general, I got this off of one of the university websites. This is kind of a general thing. 1 pound of turf-type tall fescue seed is 227,000 seeds. 1 pound of Kentucky Bluegrass seed is 2,177,000. So listen to this again. 1 pound of turf-type tall fescue seed, 227,000 seeds to make 1 pound. Kentucky Bluegrass, 2,177,000 seeds makes 1 pound. Now realize they all have the potential to make one plant. And even though turf-type tall fescue is sometimes a wider blade, it's taller. Maybe that's why it has a bigger seed. In general, though, they're still the same looking kind of a plant. So what I'm getting at is when you have 2,177,000 seeds per pound, if you have a 3 pounds per thousand overseed rate for Kentucky Bluegrass, that's 6,351,000 seeds would go across 1,000 square foot. That's 3 pounds. 6,351,000 seeds of Kentucky Bluegrass across 1,000 square feet. If you had a 6 pounds per thousand seed rate of turf-type tall fescue, that's 1,362,000. So there are approximately 6 times more Kentucky Bluegrass seeds going out on that 1,000 square feet at a 3 pound rate than there are compared to the turf-type tall fescue at a 6 pound rate. But they all have the potential to make one plant. So that is why the Kentucky Bluegrass has such a lower rate, because there are just so many more seeds per pound. This also goes into percentages. If you're buying a blend and you're looking at percentages, understand the percentages are by weight, not by seed count. So if you get say a 50% Bluegrass, 50% turf-type tall fescue blend, you're going to have a lot more seeds of Kentucky Bluegrass in there than you are turf-type tall fescue. It isn't 50% by the number of seeds. It's 50% by weight. Just let that sink in a little bit. Kind of try to wrap your mind around that. But that's something to think about. And it's part of what I love about this podcast is I get you to look at things a little bit differently. All right, I got a call I got to jump on here. You guys won't see much from that, but I'm going to jump on this call. And when I get back, we're going to go right into our questions for the week. All right. Thanks for waiting on me. You guys won't know in the podcast, but I've just been on an hour-long conference call. Adult work. But now I am back to what I love doing, and that is creating content. So I've got some call-in questions this week, as well as a few that have come in through the groups and that across the old internet over by there. And if you do want to call in and leave a question, 833-LCN-TIPS. That's 833-LCN-TIPS. Leave me a message there, and hopefully I'll be able to get, if I can answer your question, I will do my best to get it on the podcast. So get a little bit of this and a little bit of that this week. Our first one comes from Bob. Bob is in Pennsylvania, and he says, "Hi, Alan. I have been following you for a while, and I've purchased your guide and used the products through your website." Thanks, bro. "It's been great, and this spring my grass was rocking. However, I live in Pittsburgh, and we've been crushed with no rain and high temps. Couple that with my irrigation system's been broken until recently. My grass is now mostly dormant or dead. My question is around fall seeding. If my grass had been plush and the way I like it, do I just wait for it to come back, or is it worth core-rating and overseeding? I've attached a picture below. I have just aerated and overseeded last fall. I appreciate your videos and emails." So here's the thing with Bob. Now, I'll put the picture up. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. So this is what his lawn looks like when he wasn't able to water it all summer. Got no rain, apparently, or very little. Now, you guys had temps way over 95, bunch of days, way too many days in a row, which is way too hot for cool season turf. It's not your fault, obviously. What are you going to do, right? But it's just too hot. There's upper limits to what something can handle. That's all living things. There's only a certain upper limit to what you can handle, and that's it. And you're going to check out. And so his grass went dormant. Now, there's some green in it, so I'm assuming he started watering again from his irrigation that he just got fixed, but that's a key word there. He had no irrigation all summer. He's just got it fixed. So you got a choice, right? Do I hope for the best and hope that it wakes up, or do I aerate and overseed and hopefully fill some of it in? So let's just talk through that decision, because I can't make that for you. I can't see your lawn, and you're right. You can't tell the difference in dormant and dead areas unless you start waking it up. So that's the first thing you want to do. And what I would recommend is if you're somebody, he's got his irrigation fixed, if you're somebody that does have a way to water now, then you're going to have to start watering. The thing you want is to wait for mild or more cool temperatures. And I think most of you guys are getting more mild temperatures. You're in the 80s. You're getting some days in the 70s. So the first thing is that's a sign to the grass. When the temperatures outside start getting lower from those 90s, that's a sign to the lawn, hey, okay, you can come out of your dormancy now. Now, some of it may not be able to if it's dead. We'll talk about that. But you can come out of your dormancy now. The temperatures are cool. You can come out and start, living again, start growing again, right? Because it's waiting for the fall anyway. When you get to the fall, the grass will come out because it just does. That's its growth habit. I've showed you the growth humps of the cool season lawn before. So hopefully you're getting some of those signals now, and the grass is kind of thinking to itself, the crown of the grass, it's still kind of dormant brown, but like, okay, I feel this cool temp, but I'm going to wait a little bit, make sure that it's not a fluke, make sure that they're not fooling me here, make sure that we are going to stay with these cool temps. But the other thing is you got to give it the water. And so that's the thing. You got to commit to watering. He's got his irrigation fixed now. He can do that. So if you are going to try to wake it up, then that's what you want to do before you consider aeration overseed, because we're pretty early even. We're 2 weeks early for Pennsylvania right now anyway for aeration overseed. So go ahead and take advantage and see what comes up. So got your irrigation in line, got your cooler temps helping you, start watering. So you want to start watering every single day for the next 5 to 6 days, and you want to get down a ½ inch, even 3/4 inches of water in the morning for the next 5 to 6 days. What that will do is, coupled with the cooler temps that the lawn is feeling, will also tell the lawn, bro, I got you in the water department too. I got you hooked up. So we're going to give you cooler temps. We're going to give you water. You are welcome to wake up now. And what will happen is any grass that's not dead will start to wake up. It will start to come back. And I can kind of see that in his pictures a little bit here from Bob because he started to water. Now, after that 5 or 6 day mark, give it, cut your watering back to every other day, just like you normally would. Hopefully you'll get a rain help in there. Man, I'll tell you what, a good nourishing rain, so much better than your irrigation could be. That will help. And give it that 10 days is about that time. By the way, you could put down a little fertilizer if you want. You could put down some stress type fertilizer that's high in potash. At the same time that you start this watering, that would be a huge help. You're not going to hurt anything, right? Because the grass that's going to live is the grass that's going to live, so you're going to help it. I would definitely do that. High potash. We have a 7020 on the website, a Yard Mastery brand. Man, that stuff, the results from that have been crazy. Like way better than I expected. I was like, we'll put up an inexpensive, potassium summer fertilizer here. And the pictures I get back are crazy. And then we have the Stress X, obviously that has the sulfate of potash in it. And then we have a straight SOP sulfate of potash. Any of those would be great to really help that lawn come out as you start this process. As you decide, I'm going to start the watering now. I got the cooler temperatures there. So give it that 10 days, hit it with the Fert at the same time. And after 10 days, take a look at the lawn. You want to look at areas that greened up and areas that didn't. And the first thing you should do to the areas that didn't go green up is go start digging, even if you put down a grub app, because what happens inevitably, and I'm going to start seeing emails as soon as this happens, as soon as things start to come out, people are going to send me emails. What are these brown spots? If you are coming from summer into fall and the lawn is starting to green up, but there are some areas that aren't, you want to go dig in those areas and look for grubs. There is no sense in guessing if you have grubs. If you have them, you will find them. They will be present. They look like little white shrimp under the lawn. I have so many people that go, hey, I have brown spots. I wonder if it's grubs. No, there's no need to wonder. Go dig. You'll find them. You dig in the brown spot and you dig right up to the edge where it turns green. The grass will pull up and you will find the grubs under there. Again, they look like little white shrimp. Because a lot of times that's what happens. The grass has been dormant. The grubs have been there. You haven't seen it because the whole grass was dormant. Now the areas that don't come back, those are the areas where the grubs were chewing on those dormant roots throughout the summer. So that's the first thing you do. If you don't find grubs, then chances are those areas that are brown, those did die during the summer, especially in the case like Bob here where he wasn't able to water. Now, if you're somebody that was able to water in the summer like I've been preaching at you to do, which was water every 7 to 10 days, 1/2 inch of water just to keep the crowns alive. Let the grass go dormant. That's fine. That's okay. That's a defense mechanism that it does. But you want to go ahead and make sure you're watering at least once a week to keep the crowns alive. The grass will not turn green from that, but it'll just have enough moisture to stay dormant on its own and in its little hibernation in the summer there. It's checkout period. If you've been doing that and you don't find grubs, or if you've been doing that, you shouldn't really have any dieback. You might still get some. But either way, areas that are brown coming out of the fall or into the fall, out of the summer, areas that are brown that you don't find grubs, those are dead. And that's when you make the determination on whether you should seed or not, or aerate and seed or not, depending how big those areas are. If they're just scattered throughout areas, if there's green scattered throughout and a few dead spots here and there that are the size of a softball, like a 16-inch softball, then that's okay. Those will kind of fill back in. The roots too, a lot of times the roots will surprise you and push up some new fresh stuff. So in that case, then what you would do is if you're just scattered green, scattered brown throughout, I would go ahead and go in a defense mechanism. We're going to talk about that pre-emergent and heavy fert. But if you have large sweeping areas that are dead, then you're going to have to break out that aerator, overseed again, do the whole thing, poke a whole bunch of holes, all of that. Now, one thing too, leading up to that time, I've encouraged you to try to water your way out of it to give yourself that look. And that's really what I'm talking about here. Water your way through now that you have a couple weeks of pad time here and just see if the lawn wakes back up. It's kind of a litmus test for yourself to understand, did it die or did it not? And the reason that makes sense is because if you're going to seed, you're going to have to be able to water the seed. So your excuse can't be, well, I can't water. Well, if you can't water, then you shouldn't seed anyway. That's what a lot of people will say. They'll say, well, I can't do this watering to wake the lawn up. Well, then the answer to you seeding would be no, period. Because if you can't water, you can't seed. You shouldn't seed. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to look at this. But one thing I would do is if you are going to aerate and overseed, he would be doing this, is make sure you're watering up to it. You want to be able to pull a good core, and the way that you pull a good core is to make sure there's proper soil moisture there. So I kind of went a little over there on that one, but I think again, this podcast is designed to get you guys to think through things in a little bit different way, look at things a little bit differently. And I think that's a good way to test your lawn starting now to see how it's doing. All right, next one comes from Dan, and Dan says, Alan, although my old school front and side yards have been treated by True Green for about 5 years, now we decided to take on our backyard, 6,500 square feet, ourselves. The back was graded and newly seeded in the fall of 2018, but we let it go last year. So I've been following you this year and using your biostimulant pack and looking forward to overseeding soon. I was reading your fall seeding supplement today, and I have a question. Should I be using a starter fertilizer and Milorganite when I overseed? When you list the steps on pages 29 and 30, only starter fertilizer is mentioned, but round 5 in the cool season guide lists both. what should I do? This is a great question, Dan. Boy, Dan's really reading. This is what I love it, man, when you guys really read the stuff. So the regular cool season guide that I have, you guys can get that on the lawncarenut.com. Gives you full year plan, step-by-step, teaches you how to do your lawn, when to do it, all that kind of stuff. Lines up with our app, too. That tells you at round 5, and also the videos I've done with Jake in the past, tells you at round 5 to put down heavy Milorganite, and then go to like a Walmart or wherever and get like a 10-10-10 and put that down along with the Milorganite, or some kind of something labeled starter fertilizer. The reason I do that in the book is that option with the Milorganite there is because Milorganite, first of all, has lower N and lower phos, so you got to put a lot of that down, and then you want to supplement it with something, but there's no potassium. And the idea of a starter fertilizer is you get a little of all of them. You get some nitrogen, some phosphorus, and some potassium, but the biggest thing you want is the phos. So the reason I put the two together is because Milorganite will give you a little bit of nitrogen and some phos, and then the 10-10-10 or the starter fert you get will give you more nitrogen, more phos, and some potassium. That's why I have all those put together there. But when you use the starter fertilizers that we have on our site, like the XST, the X-Start from Carbon Earth, or the 16-21-2 Green Pop, that's from Green County, that's the liquid, those have all of that in them. Plus, in addition, they have humic acid, or, well, I shouldn't say that. The XST has a root-promoting peptide as its biostimulant, and then the liquids have humic acid and sea kelp, as well as some micro. So the idea being, if you're going to use one of the things we saw on the website, that's all you need. They're fully formed products. They don't need all of that extra. It's the store-bought stuff that we kind of have to forge together a couple different products in order to get what we want. So that's the difference. So if you want to go store-bought, you got to get two products to really round out that triple action, whereas if you get one of the things on our website, it's got everything included. So great question, Dan. Glad to see you reading into things that way. All right, next one. I got a little sad music I got to play here. This is going to be fun. Let's go to Sam here. Hello, Alan. I just want to let you know that I've learned a lot from your YouTube channel. It's quirky, informational, and I get great looking results. I'm contacting you today because I just can't beat this lawn here in Nashville, Tennessee. I come from upstate New York, Rochester, and I always had the perfect Kentucky bluegrass lawn, full, thick, green. Did my FERT program, weed control. You were lucky if you could find one weed in my lawn. It also helped that my neighbors on both sides, they kept their lawns looking good too. Minus the creeping Charlie, but I'd spray on their side. Ha ha ha. Here in Nashville, I had tall fescue. I put it down when we moved into the new home. Landscape guy waited too long to lay some of my turf, and it eventually died. He came back the following year replacing sod in the summer. But by that time the summer started early and was extremely hot and longer than normal. Weeds started to grow all over. I waited until fall to kill off the crabgrass, nutsedge, etc. I resodded a month later. It grew in great, but died the following summer. I didn't want any bare spots visible during that summer, so I waited for more weeds to grow in, so I did my best to let any grass grow, just thinking that I would control it again later in the fall. I need your help. I just can't keep up with these hot temps in the weed control. Ivy, nutsedge, Bermuda grass, crabgrass. I'd like to have the feel of that Kentucky bluegrass under my feet again. But if that's not possible here in the South, I'll take anything that is nice and thick, that feels great when you lay on your back in the grass, looking up at the stars. I miss those days. My lawn is full sun, and I'd really appreciate any information you could provide, and thank you in advance for your time and help. Sincerely, Sam. Well, Sam, here's your long-distance dedication. Little Casey Kasem. So if you're on YouTube, I have a picture of Sam's lawn there, and it is not looking good. I think he's got a little bit of like a during summer and then what it looks like now or something. I don't know. It's flat gone. So, Nashville, like that solid transition zone, man. Again, they get some heat there, but they also have a little winter. That's the whole thing. It's not like it stays over 50 degrees all winter there either. They can get some freezes. And so that's that transition zone. You guys really have it tough. I'll tell you, you have a lot of choices in the transition zone that the rest of us don't have, but your challenges are many because every choice comes with some pros and some cons, right? And you can see that he's tested that. He's worked with Fescue, and man, Fescue it's pretty close to the feel of Kentucky bluegrass, especially the more improved stuff. but it's not going to be able to handle some of that Nashville heat, especially in this full sun area that he's dealing with. So, I mean, I get it. Sam is like at his wit's end, and I get too many emails like this. Too many. But I got you, Sam. I got what you need, bro. I'm going to help you out today. So the first thing I want you to do before you replace anything, and the recommendation I'm going to give you, I don't know if you can do it in the fall. You may have to wait till spring. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the first thing I want you to do is get a soil test. Let's just make sure that there isn't something crazy going on with pH or whatever, right? Just get a soil test. You got everything dead there anyway. You haven't really done anything because you've just been letting it go. So get a soil test. The other thing is dig around. I'm sure you've probably done that since you've resodded and reseeded like 3 or 4 times already, but dig around. Just make sure there's not any giant rocks in there or something like that that's sucking all the moisture out of it, which could be. Or maybe that there's not like some sort of rock bed 4 inches down or, whatever. So do that. Now, the thing is, again, I looked at the weather in Nashville. You're definitely over 95 degrees every year, even in a normal year, like in July and even into August. So you cool season turf's going to be tough, right? So the other thing is your backyard is fenced, and that means something to me too, which what that means is your neighbors can't see it. And that goes back to my recommendation here. I am going to recommend that you go with Zoysia. The reason is, number one is Zoysia of all the warm season turfs. Now, my friends with hybrid Bermuda could argue this, and they would have a good argument. But of all the warm season turfs, Zoysia is the softest underfoot, with a very close second of some of the hybrid Bermuda. I've stepped on some Celebration Bermuda before, some Tiff Tough. I mean, nice. Okay, so even Bimini. So I don't want to say that those are not soft, but those probably won't do quite as well in where you're at. So I'm going to say go with Zoysia. That's going to give you a soft feel. I have Empire Zoysia. You could do Empire, but I'll give you 2 other better recommendations, I believe. But my Empire Zoysia is very soft, and Zoysia only comes from a couple different of the originals. I think Meyer. Boy, I don't want to get too deep into that, but anyway. All I'm trying to say is there are Zoysias that will do very well in your area, and they're going to be softer under your foot. They're not going to be as soft as Kentucky Bluegrass. This doesn't exist. They're not going to be as soft as turf-type tall fescue. That just doesn't exist. But they're going to get pretty close, and that's the Zoysias. There's 2 I would look at. By the way, the Zoysias are going to do great in your area. However, they're going to green up later than everyone else. So everybody else around you that has turf-type tall fescue, they're going to green up in March. You're not going to green up until April. So you're going to be a month behind. That's why I mentioned it's important that your lawn there is fenced so your neighbors can't see. So it's not going to like people are going to be like, bro, what's wrong with your lawn? Why is our lawns are all green? We don't do nothing to them, and your lawn's still brown. What's the problem with that? Right? You're not going to get any of that. The other thing will happen in the fall. Their lawns will stay greener longer. Their fescue lawns, where yours will start to check out sooner. You'll get the same thing. Bro, why's your lawn turn brown when ours will turn green? Right? And that's one of the problems you have in the transition zone is everything has a give and take. If you go with a warm season turf, you're going to green up later and you're going to go dormant sooner. However, in the summer, your grass is going to party time. Where everybody else's fescue is going to be struggling, you'll be like, bro, why is your fescue looking terrible in the summer and my Zoysia is raging like a lion? Right? That's what you're going to be able to say. So that's the difference. That's that give and take. But your backyard's fenced, so it's only for you. It's not for your neighbors to look at. Tell them to quit peeping over the fence, right? All right. So 2 different Zoysias I would look at. I would look at the Jamur Zoysia, Jamur, and that one, their patent is owned by the Turfgrass Group. That's one of the sod mafia. There's like 3 or 4 different companies that own all the patents to the grass, and I call them the sod mafia. And the Turfgrass Group, I've never worked with them. I saw them at GIE one time, and either way, they're the ones, and I'm joking around, they're good companies because they bring these they work with universities and they pay the money that it takes to bring these new cultivars to market. They test them for years, and they put a lot of money in that into research and development. So these are good companies. It's just funny to call them the sod mafia. But the Turfgrass Group has the Jamur Zoysia, which I've never worked with, but I've seen guys in our group that have it, and they just love it. And that'll work great in Nashville. It's highly drought tolerant. So that's one thing. They say it takes lower fertilizer, but bomb it anyway. Who cares? The other one, and I think this might be an even better choice, Innovation Zoysia. That's from Sod Solutions. They're the ones that make the Zoysia. I don't know how available Innovation Zoysia is yet. I know there are a few farms that have it. I haven't seen it, but I've just kind of been following it a little bit. That one actually can handle cold even better. And that's why, guys, that's the issue here, is you don't want the Zoysia to be damaged over the winter. Now, there's Zoysia all the way up, Meyer Zoysia, all the way up in the north, and they can handle the cold. So, but the Innovation can handle cold pretty high, can definitely handle Nashville. So those are two I would look at, Innovation and Jamur Zoysia. And I think you're going to be really happy with those. Those give you some flexibility too, especially with the Jamur. It's not going to get a thatch layer. That's one of the challenges you have with Zoysia. If you mow it taller, it'll build thatch. I'm not sure about Innovation, but who cares, right? Mow them tall if you want, where they're nice and soft, but they're pretty soft even if you mow them down around 2 inches. And like my Empire Zoysia really does best at 1 inch. I've never gotten it that low because I have too many bumps, even though the lawn tools were here, and we tried to do some leveling, which is a little announcement I want to make. I got a video coming out this weekend on my Zoysia and some failed attempts. It's not a leveling video, let me just say that. But what it is it's a video that shows you how strong Zoysia is. Zoysia, man, I always used to say that Bermuda, I shouldn't say used to, I still say that Bermuda is the ultimate alpha grass. Like, it will take over anything. St. Augustine, too. St. Augustine will roll around your neck if you lay in the grass too long, but nobody lays in St. Augustine. That's the problem. But, man, I'll tell you what, Zoysia's, it's a power lifter, man. It just chokes. It doesn't grow fast as far as wide, fast, and it's slow to establish. And I'm learning that with Bermuda, too, though. Patience, a lot of stuff. I got so many updates coming from my Bermuda grow at the church and my rehab and my Zoysia. I got a couple different Zoysia lawns I'm working on, but I got a Zoysia video coming out, and I will show you what happened when we tried to level a few areas, some things that snuck in there and some things that didn't and all that. But anyway, back to it. Zoysia can be mowed low, so that'll open you up, Sam, to a few different options if you want to mow the lawn a little lower. You know, it looks pretty flat from what you have there, but that's what I would do, man. I would go with Zoysia. I would just till all that up, till it all under. You know, it's a small area back there, and go with Zoysia. I think you'd be real happy with that. All right, next we are going to go to a recording, and these are two kind of similar questions that I have here, and so it's the same answer to two similar questions. I just want to make sure I get this right. I got to pull up my little map here on my Roadcaster. Oh, I don't have it plugged in, so I'm not going to be able to do it. All right, well, I'm just going to hope I hit the right one, and if not. All right, so here we go. We got two questions that came in that are very similar.
What up, Alan? My name is Eric. I'm in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I've got a turf-type top fescue yard. I'm looking to overseed this year with Kentucky Bluegrass. I'm wondering if I overseed maybe a week early, can I go ahead and put down my pre-emergent after the grass comes up, or do I need to mow it a couple times before I can put my pre-emergent down for the fall and over the winter? Thanks.
Great question, Eric. Now, I have another one that came in. This is from Justin, and this is very similar, so I'll read his, and then I'm going to answer both questions because they're very much the same. So this is from Justin. Hi, Alan, longtime listener and viewer, and can't thank you enough for all the work that you put in creating the fantastic resources. My wife and I recently moved to Carmel, Indiana, and over the past 2 months, I've been dealing with a variety of weeds and disease in our lawn, which is primarily a blend of bluegrass and fescue. I've been rotating applications of Tenacity and quinclorac plus 2,4-D, along with Heritage and propiconazole, those are fungicides, and have been able to manage the aggressive crabgrass and oxalis growth. My question for you is if Tenacity is going to be my single option for pre-emergent when I aerate, level, and overseed, and sadly reseed. I'm targeting mid-September for a 45-day window unless soil temps don't cooperate. I know that any further pre-emergent I lay down will need to be 30 days roughly after seeding and healthy growth, trying to plan out my approach for a healthy soil and control of any additional weed growth after seeding. As warm as it has been, I'm worried that the usual broadleaf burst cycle will be extended longer this year. Cheers, Justin. Good questions. Okay, so the question is, I want to do some pre-emergent, but I'm also going to be seeding. That's essentially what's going on here. So let me just take you through, and both of these guys are sounding a little bit more advanced to me. So you're definitely going to want to put down mesotrione. Tenacity is the brand name. Mesotrione is the generic, and it's cheaper. We have it on both websites at yardmastery.com or thelawncarenut.com. You want to put that down on the day of seeding. And we did that also with our wow, I just totally drew a blank. With our Millennial Farmer video, we put down Tenacity on the day of seeding as well. Now, here's the thing about Tenacity. It's about a 30-day pre-emergence. It doesn't get everything, but it gets a lot of things that's going to help you to keep things out of your grow. Now, if you're new, and because you have to understand, guys, those of you that have done aeration and overseeded before, it's not a big deal to you. In fact, you kind of look forward to it. I do. I love to aerate. I love running an aerator. Back when I worked for True Green, people would be like, hated running aerators. We used to put our newest employees on aeration, and if they didn't quit after 2 weeks, we're like, this guy's going to make it. I shouldn't say 2 weeks, 2 days, because but I liked it, man. It make you feel like a human. So, and I think some of you guys are that way too. So those of you that have aerated and overseeded before, it's not a big deal to you, but somebody that's never done it before, it's daunting. It's like, all right, I got to go to the store. I got to get the aerator. I only got 4 hours to get it done because that's all I paid for. Then I got to get down my seed. Then I got to get down my starter for, all these things. Then I got to get down my seed covering. Then I got to get this back to the store. I hope my buddy's home to help me load it in the truck. And all these things. It's a lot. It's a long day of work. So it's daunting for a new person. So if you're new, don't add the Tenacity in. It's another step. It's more brain power that you're not going to have because you got all these other things in your head that you're concerned about, and you're just not going to want to do the mix. Just don't. Okay? The winter's going to kill most things for you, and you're going to be fine. However, if you're like these guys and you're a little more advanced, or in the case of Justin where he thinks that the summer might linger on a little longer, which he might be right there, then you should use Tenacity at the time of seeding, and that is a good pre-emergence control. It's not going to stop everything, but it'll stop some things. And I got the list of things. It's important to look at it with pre-emergence versus post-emergence because they're not the same. For example, it'll kill nutsedge as a post-emergent, but it doesn't prevent it. An example, okay? And you might have a lot of nutsedge coming into your grow here as you start watering more. So that's something to think about. But here's some of the things that it will stop. And I don't know if all of these even germinate in the fall. A lot of them don't. But you have to understand when you aerate and overseed, you're opening things up. So you're kind of throwing off the timing, the natural timing of things anyway. So what happens is when you aerate and you open the ground up and you throw a ton of fertilizer in, you throw a ton of water in, there's stuff under there that'll wake up and go, well, heck, I don't even know what time of year it is. I've been buried under here for a long time. But I got a lot of water and I could feel some air on my face. I can see the sunlight coming through. I'm going to go ahead and grow. I don't even know if it's the right time of year yet. I'm just going to grow. And that's what happens. So all kinds of junk will grow. I sound like Paul Outlaw on that. So, but that's what will happen. So all this stuff can grow. So here's what we got. Here's the things that it prevents. Pigweed, purslane, shepherd's purse, smartweed, speedwell, barnyard grass, bent grass, bluegrass, annual bluegrass. Now, annual bluegrass, it suppresses, doesn't kill it. Or it's not good, but it suppresses. And I'll tell you, some suppression of annual bluegrass is better than nothing. Okay? Especially if you've made the decision where you have to aerate and overseed. We have another question coming up later about that where somebody's got some Poa annuissum and they're wondering about that decision. But it will suppress, but not stop at all. Plantain. Plantain is big right now. So that one. Carpetweed, chickweed. I think that might be a fall one. Yeah, chickweed's fall. Crabgrass. Crabgrass will be coming up all during this time. So, dandelions. Some dandelions get confused. It will not stop ones. Like dandelions will have this like second wind in the fall a lot of times. And it won't stop ones that are already there that already have a big tape root already grown. But it will stop new seed from germinating, which can sometimes happen. So foxtail definitely. There's a lot of others, or there's a few others. But those are the ones that it'll help to stop. So if you are going to aerate and overseed and you're more advanced, use the Tenacity, use the mesotrione at the time of seeding as a way to give you 30 days of control, okay? So that's the first thing to think about. Now, when can you apply then a pre-emergent after? And it's not a bad idea, okay? After your seed grows in and things are good, if you feel like the summer is going to linger on, they call that an Indian summer. And I don't know if we're allowed to say that anymore, but I'm going to say it. That's what it's called, Indian summer, where the fall doesn't really come in like you expect and the summer is extended. The way you'll know is if soil temperatures are still hovering around 60. So you plant your seed, everything is grown in. We're going to talk about timing here in a minute. But you plant your seed, everything's grown in, you feel good about it, you're out mowing now, and your soil temperatures are still lingering at 60, then it's a good idea to go ahead and throw down a dithiopyr or prodiamine. If you still have prodiamine left over from the spring and you haven't used up your yearly allotment, you can throw that down, or you can throw dithiopyr down. People can get confused. People have become to think that prodiamine is a thing. It's not. It's an active ingredient. Dithiopyr is also an active ingredient that does the exact same thing. So you could use either or, okay? So after things are going, if you feel like soil temperatures are still at 60, if you have our app, you'll know, and you're going to have an extended summer, nothing wrong with putting that down, that dithiopyr or that prodiamine. but there's a timing involved with that. And the timing is this: 2 mowings or 30 days. So dithiopyr, we'll use that. If you're going to throw dithiopyr down, it's 30 days after you see the grass coming in and it's been mowed at least twice. Okay? So think about that. It matters if you have a blend. So if you're putting a blend of turf-type tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass down, the turf-type tall fescue, you will see it at around day 8 to 10. You'll see it. And I'm not talking about germination. Germination happens under the ground. I'm talking about when you see it. So if you did turf-type tall fescue, you'll see it at about day 8 to 10. You'd need to wait 30 days after that and 2 mowings. Okay? Then you can put down dithiopyr. If you put it down sooner, it will stunt the new growth and possibly kill it. But there's something to consider there. If you're throwing a blend down that's turf-type tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass together, the turf-type tall fescue comes in at the 8 to 10 day mark, but the Kentucky bluegrass won't come in for 21 days, and you need to use that one as your litmus test. So if your 21-day mark is Kentucky bluegrass, then you need to wait 30 days after that and 2 mowings before you put down a pre-emergent. So that's something to think about. You know, you don't want to kill half of your seed if you have that blend in there. Okay, and that's where we get into the fact that maybe in Carmel they're far enough south, but you know, Eric, in Kentucky too, you might be far enough south too. So you might still be, if you're doing Kentucky bluegrass with both. I think both of you said you were. You know, if you wait 21 days for the Kentucky bluegrass to show its face, and then 30 days after that and 2 mowings, you know, that's 51, 52, 53 days. You might still be at that 60-degree mark. But if your soil temps are under 60 by that time, then I would not throw down a pre-emergent. Now, the other thing is the dithiopyr. I wouldn't waste it. Now, in Kentucky, southern Kentucky, there may be places in Kentucky where your soil temp, and I don't know, I haven't checked, I should have. I don't think there are in Indiana, but maybe in Kentucky, where your soil temp never gets below 50, and there are times in the winter where it gets a little warmer. That could be in Kentucky. You may want to put down the pre-emergent almost like it's warm season turf to carry you through the whole winter. That goes for any of you all that your ground doesn't really freeze. It stays, you know, 45 or higher for a good portion of the winter and lingers in the 50s. You can look at this on the Greencast tool and kind of see. You're going to want to keep pre-emergent running all winter, really, to keep that junk out. So hopefully that will answer some of those questions for you guys thinking about whether you're going to be able to get that pre-emergent in after your grow. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will take some more questions. You're listening to Lawns Across America. Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, hosting. This is Lawns Across America, episode 35. If you want to be on the podcast, don't forget, call in 833-LCN-TIPS, 833-LCN-TIPS. Leave us a message, and if we can answer it, we will on the podcast. Also, don't forget to visit our websites, yardmastery.com, where we bring small companies to light for DIYers. Everything we do there is DIY first. That's yardmastery.com. Lots of new companies being added there. Often as we can, lots more in the pipeline. If you're a DIYer and you want to have access to products that the big boxes shut out, yardmastery.com is the place to get them. All right, so we got another cool season 1 coming up, and I promise you, warm season folks, I got some more for you. Just happens that there's just so many cool season coming in because it's seed time of the year. So this one comes from Paul. I'll read this one in the Chicago accent because of where he's at. He says, "How you doing? I'm in Illinois, south suburbs. From what I've read, you used to live over by here. Anyway, this year I was late getting started, but fascinated with your products and your knowledge. I have a lot of weed issues, and I'm wondering how to treat the weed issues this fall and next spring while also feeding my lawn and my soil. I'm not looking to aerate and overseed, but I saw you got a lot of products over by there, and I'm ready to order the right products for the right time and the right purpose. I'd like to get started here in the fall. What do you think?" All right, so we got someone here that, Sam, he wants to get started, or Paul, he wants to get started, but he's not going to aerate and overseed. What can he do? And by the way, you don't have to aerate and overseed. You don't. It's cool. I want you to do it. I want you to experience it. But if your lawn is sufficiently thick, You got to realize that you can make a lot of headway with it really fast, even in the fall, just by pushing it with fert. So let's talk about that. For those of you that have a cool season lawn that you're not going to aerate, you're not going to overseed. Plus, he's just getting started here. And, to have aeration and overseed and starter fert and all that be your very first thing you do when you're just starting, that's a lot, man. Maybe do that next year. Start with the basics. Start with something that's easy, and that's going to be fertilizer, pre-emergent, and a couple other things. So the first thing is your existing lawn that's there. As you come into fall, as soil temperatures fall below 70 degrees, your lawn is going to start to want to run again. It's going to want to start grabbing energy from the sun. It's going to want to start pushing roots. It's going to push a lot of roots in the fall because it's preparing for the coming winter in Illinois, where it's going to be dormant. And so it's got to fatten itself up. It's got to think of it like a bear ready for hibernation. The bear's going to eat a lot. It's going to gorge itself so that way it can hibernate all during the winter. And that's exactly what your lawn is going to do. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start hitting it hard with fertilizer. He asked for products from our website. I would say Carbonex, straight up, CXDIY, hammer it every 4 weeks. As soon as soil temperatures start to look like they're going to whiff close to that 70, bam, Carbon Earth, CXDIY. Every 4 weeks. When you get a little bit later into the summer, this is assuming no soil test as well. When you get a little bit later into the fall, really you could just keep up with that at super high nitrogen, or maybe you want to switch to something like the Balance that's got a lot of NPK in it, whatever. But we'll talk about winterizers later on down the road. But really, Carbon X, just hammer it, man. It's going to be the best thing for you. It's going to push the growth, going to push everything to really move, going to get some roots in. It's going to get things established and make your lawn this silvery blue-green. That's a product you're going to put down. Second thing, you want to defend against Poa annua, chickweed, spurge, hairy bittercress, henbit. These are fall germinating annuals or winter annuals. These are ones that are going to germinate as the soil temperatures fall around 70. At that same time, you're going to start fertilizing. These weeds are going to germinate, and they're going to start growing, and they're going to survive over winter, and they're going to plague you in the spring. So you want to put down a pre-emergent. Dithiopyr is what you want to use, or you can use prodiamine. You choose. But dithiopyr is really typically the one that people use, and they use prodiamine in the spring. So put down your dithiopyr. Get that watered in, 4 pounds per 1,000. You probably only need one application of that. That's going to last you 4 months. So if you start that in September, that's going to go October, November, December. You're going to be fine. By the time you get past that, your ground's going to be frozen anyway in the south suburbs of Chicago. So first thing, fertilize every 4 weeks. One application of pre-emergent here at the same time as soil temperatures fall to 70. Weeds, you want to spray weeds? You said you got a lot of weeds there that are already there. Maybe you got some clover, you got some plantain, whatever. You got some stuff lingering in the lawn there from the summertime. So I'll give you an example of a really good weed control, and it is called Speed Zone. Speed Zone. Speed Zone is a great weed control. It's got 2,4-D at a very high concentration, 28%, carfentrazone, dicamba, and MCPP. Yeah, you know me. That's a very good mix for weeds. But the best part of that is that the 2,4-D is going to kill most of the weeds, and it's in the ester formulation, so it works well in the cooler temperatures, which is what you're going to have in the fall. So Speed Zone is great for spring and fall. Speed Zone is going to wipe out pretty much a lot of stuff that you have. Now, if you have some crabgrass lingering, you probably need to get a little quinclorac on that as well. Now, another one you could get if you have violet or ground ivy. Now, that Speed Zone will do pretty good on violet and ground ivy, but if you do have violet and ground ivy, which is really bad in the south suburbs of Chicago, you want to get triclopyr. That's an active ingredient, and you can get it by itself, also in an ester formulation, so it works really good in the fall. So if you have a lot of violet, creeping Charlie, triclopyr, that's an active ingredient. So those are the products. Those are the things you're going to put down. You just spot spray with that weed control. Now, the other thing you want to do, obviously, I say these things all the time. You want to get your watering in line. If you're not going to get any you're going to get temperature help, but if you're not getting irrigation help from Mother Nature, which usually you do in the fall, you'll get that rain once a week or so. But if you're not getting that, you're going to have cloud cover. That's going to help. But the one thing you want to do is water. So water 1/2 inch every other day or so. As temperatures get cooler, you can back that off to every 3 or 4 or even 5 days, 1/2 inch, if you're not getting help. But I'm telling you, I remember so many times in October where, Halloween would get rained out or whatever. So you're going to get plenty of rain in the fall in that area. And then the third thing, get your mowing in line. Start mowing as often as you can. Buy a new lawnmower if you need one, Paul, but enjoy that mow. Mow every 4 days, 5 days. Again, what that's going to do is just encourage rooting, encourage lateral growth. It's going to encourage fattening up of the turf, and that's what you want. Get that mowing in line. So those are the things I would do, not aerating and overseeding. Push that lawn. Think of it like spring, literally, and you can make your lawn so beautiful just by doing those things in a very short time, like 8 weeks. You could have a gorgeous lawn just from doing that. All right, next, let's go to Rick. And we got a warm season one here. Rick's got St. Augustine grass. So I told you guys we would get to you. So here we go, Rick. But he sent me a series of emails, and let's see if I can read a spot here. Oh, man. I should have organized this one a little bit better. He has my guide. I'm at my wit's end. My St. Augustine lawn, I live in Miami, Florida, and I have a very large lawn, about 17,000 square feet. When I bought my house about 2 years ago, the front lawn had in-ground irrigation and had been partly well-maintained without much effort. My backyard is a completely different story. It did not initially have in-ground sprinklers, and I attempted to get it with a hose-in sprinklers after spending several $1,000s on resodding my backyard. 1 year after resodding, my backyard was back to square one, mostly dead and full of weeds. About 3 months ago, I went ahead and added an in-ground irrigation to the backyard, and I have resodded the backyard again. Now I'm starting to fear that the grass is dying again, and it's going to crash and burn. I tried True Green Service for about a year. That didn't work. I have cameras throughout my property, and they would ghost my lawn. Oh, gosh. Sorry, buddy. I'm now attempting to get it back on track. Attached are several pictures of my lawn and my backyard. Any input would be great. Okay, that's where we're at. So his front yard is fine. It's had irrigation. The backyard has not had irrigation, and it was sodded. He tried to water it by hand. He couldn't keep up with it. I'm assuming he must have done that sometime outside of the rainy season, because we rain all here in the summer, all through like June, July, August, and into September. We get rain every day in South Florida, so he must have tried to do this at another point, maybe like in the spring when it's our dry season. But either way, it died. Now he's resodded again, and he's afraid he's going to have the same issue, even though now he does have in-ground sprinklers. So as I'm looking at it, the first thing I would say is get a soil test. Let's just make sure there's nothing crazy going on in the soil. I don't know. I just should make sure. Sometimes the pH can be crazy. You don't know what's been trucked in there. It's really pH that I'm looking at. So do that. Get a soil. It's not about what nutrients are there or not, even though that's very important. It's about the pH. Is it super high, super low? Let's figure that out. Now, when he sends me these pictures, though, what I'm seeing is a lawn that is fairly sparse in a lot of places. Now, where he sodded it, it's not necessarily sparse, even though it looks like it's starting to go thin, but it's yellow. So yellow is a challenge. Now, yellow, sometimes people automatically think when they see a lawn that's yellow, they think that it's take all patch or take all root rot, and it can be, but more than likely, usually what it is it's the grass is the St. Augustine is not getting the proper nutrient from the soil, and in a lot of cases it's iron. So what I recommend when you see yellow St. Augustine grass, because even if it's root rot, this will help. So let's mark this down. When you see your St. Augustine grass is yellow throughout, or even if it's some green, some yellow. If some of the blades are green and some of the greens are yellow and it's interspersed, that's usually the take-all root rot. But even so, if it's yellow, what you want to do is you need to get nutrient into it right away. And one of the advantages of St. Augustine grass is it has these big, fat grass blades. People don't like those because they're not comfortable to walk on. They're crunchy. They call it crabgrass, which irritates me to no end. But the advantage there is those big fat grass blades can catch some liquid like satellite dishes, man. You know, like the kid with big ears that you used to make fun of. He's like, yeah, but I could hear better than you, brah. And that St. Augustine grass, that big fat St. Augustine grass you like to make fun of, it can catch some liquids. So I would get a liquid that has the ability to absorb through the foliage. Now, the way that's going to happen is it's got to be very small particle size, or I guess the generic word would be thin. Can't be a thick liquid, and it has to have very small size of particle that can absorb through the grass blades. And we have a product like that, the 700 Green Effect. It is the secret weapon for St. Augustine grass. Now, it'll work on all grass types, but it works real well on St. Augustine grass, and that's really what it was developed for, is chlorotic turf, is what we call this condition. When you see St. Augustine grass, it's all yellow. It's chlorotic. It needs iron. And you put this in your pump sprayer, and you put it on in a fine mist, and it absorbs, and it literally will turn the grass green within hours, but definitely by the next day. So let it sit for 30 minutes or so. Most of the absorption takes place within a few minutes, but let it sit for 30 minutes. There'll be like this sheen to the grass blades, in fact. And then you can water it in if you want, or just leave it. You don't have to, but you don't have to water it in. But it will absorb through the grass blades. And what that does is it allows the grass to start photosynthesizing again. It gives it the nutrient that it needs. It's kind of similar to, John Perry taught me that you can feed trees fertilizer through their trunks. Now, not palm trees. Palm trees are essentially a big grass. I'm talking about oak trees, deciduous trees, right? Oaks, ash. you can actually spray fertilizer on their trunks, and they will take the fertilizer in through the trunks, and then that xylem and phloem gets through that cadmium layer or whatever. I'm saying things I don't necessarily know a lot about, but it'll get in there. It'll get in that way, and it won't even need to feed from its roots. And this is the same similar way that the St. Augustine grass does it, except it's doing through its blades, its leaves. That will turn the grass green, but it will also, like I said, strengthen it by giving it a little shot of nitrogen, because it's 700. There's some nitrogen in there. And there's also some iron. The way that works is it's got an adjuvant in it called citric acid. So he cuts it with citric acid, which makes it a very thin mixture so that it can be absorbed that way. So that's the first thing you do with St. Augustine that is struggling in this way. And again, you got your soil test, because if your pH is off, you're going to have to correct it. But that's the first thing I would do. From there, obviously, make sure you have your irrigation in line. We are now in the summer. We are getting rain every other day. And in fact, here in Florida, we've had rain for 3 days straight now. Pretty heavy all day, probably more than we want. But that's what you want to do. And then you want to go ahead and get some good micros and macros into that lawn. The thing about St. Augustine grass is it will send out those stolons. I've mentioned this earlier in the podcast. I'll mention it again. It only has to send stolons to thicken, to spread, to fill in those thin areas that you have. So it doesn't have to focus on rhizomes at the same time like the Bermuda or the Zoysia do. They got to focus on, so here's the thing. Bermuda and Zoysia have to focus on 4 things: roots, rhizomes, stolons, and top growth. Those 4 things. St. Augustine has one less. It only has to focus on roots and stolons and top growth. So it has one less thing to focus on, so it can put more of its energy into those stolons. And the way that you also encourage that is to mow it more often. If you mow it more often, it will encourage it to spread out more. The other thing naturally I see is that when there is a thin spot, it will spread the nodes, and it won't push up a lot of, out of the new nodes, it doesn't push up a lot of top growth real fast. It spends most of its time spreading. It can sense, like when it's not packed around, it can sense that there's more opportunity to spread wide than spread tall. It's kind of interesting how the grass does that. It's just its natural growth habit. It will take over those thin spots. Now you want to make sure that you're getting some potassium in there as well, because that supports all different functions in the plant. And then the other secret, again, is sea kelp. Whether you get sea kelp from us or not, it's those cytokines, it's those hormones that are in there that stimulate more rooting and more shooting. RGS is the one we have, root growth stimulant. There's all kind of different ones, but I'm telling you that sea kelp, man, that is the secret to really pushing a warm season turf to put out a whole lot more. So I would make sure I was doing that, feeding it good, give it that first foliar spray, get things kicked off, get things moving. The other thing that he does have in his lawn is some Kalinga, which is a sedge. We all have Kalinga right now. If you have St. Augustine grass and you're seeing a lot of pale, very thin looking, looks like grass. If you're seeing that, that's Kalinga. It'll get a little spur on the top of it, not a sand spur, but it'll get a little spur with 3 little shoots around it. That is Kalinga, and you want to use halosafuron for that. We used to call that sedgehammer. That's the brand name, but you can get halosafuron generically now. It does take a while to work, even though I sprayed it pretty heavy-handed over at the church the other day, and I got pretty good results in like 2 weeks. So actually a week. So you want to use a surfactant with that and a finer mist, but halosafuron will help you. Definitely a fine mist is important though when it's Kalinga, because it has such small stalklets over by there. So that's the thing, man. These warm season turfs, you just got to push them. Water them and push them with fert. Water, push, water, push. Water and push. All right, let's go now. This is a little different one. Somebody asking for a little bit of business advice over there. This is Spencer out of Utah.
Hey, Alan. My name is Spencer Faulkner. I'm calling from Ogden, Utah. So my question has to do with I'm just getting into working landscaping. And for people like me that would love to one day own a business or become an expert, besides your videos, is there any other sources that you recommend reading from or learning from in order to become an expert in grass types, weeds, pests, everything you talk about? Then real quick, I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am for the content you do put out. It's clear, concise, and it's helped a lot. So thank you. Bye.
Awesome, Spencer. Great. Thanks for that call, man. I appreciate that. And it means a lot to me. And man, you're entering into a great profession. The green industry is a great place to be. You sound like you're a young fella, and you, man, you're an entrepreneur. I don't want anybody to ever forget that. Entrepreneurs aren't people starting, software companies. Entrepreneurs are people starting lawn businesses, and you can really make some headway. You can build a great business and really do a great job, especially in Utah. People love their lawns and their landscapes out there. So a couple things I would recommend is the first is, now there's a difference in like landscaping maintenance or spray business. We'll talk a little bit about the spray business first. I would first call your Utah State University local extension office. There actually is one in Ogden. It's at 1181 Fairgrounds Drive in Ogden. I would call them, and I would just make a relationship with the local extension agent. Now, it used to be, I'm pretty sure, I did a little bit of research, that you used to have to test for your pesticide applicator license out of there, but I think they've changed that now, so you might want to ask. But they're a good local contact. Go there and tell them, hey, I'm looking to get into the spray business or the lands, probably the spray business. What can you offer me? Do you have books? They'll have books they can give you that you can study. The thing about it is when you get your pesticide applicator license, and I think in Utah you have to work under a business that has a master license, so you could either get that or maybe you have to work for somebody. They're all different. Like in Florida, you can't even get your own license independently until you work for somebody that has a license for like a couple years. There's some different laws in that. You'll have to describe what yours are there. But taking the pesticide applicator license, there's a class you have to take, and that will teach you a lot. They go into reading the labels, what to spray and when, drift, wind, reentry periods, all these kind of cool things. You'll learn chemistries. Every state's a little different. But just taking that class to get certified as a pesticide applicator will teach you a lot. That's number one. Number two, getting involved with that extension agent. A lot of times they're people that are like, they love the industry too, and they'll take you out in the field with them. Make friends with that person. Maybe you can do some volunteer classes that they have, and you can sit in on some of the continuing education classes that they have for some of the other applicators. Those are things you can do for sure. So I would definitely get involved with your local county extension, because they're gonna be able to put you in touch with some people that can help you. The other thing is, if you're a young guy and you really want to learn the spray business, I highly recommend that you go work for True Green for 2 years. Now, some of you will be surprised to hear me say that. I don't hate True Green at all. Obviously, it's fun for me to jab at them, because when I left, people told me, all roads lead back to True Green. You won't leave here for very long. You will be back. So it's fun for me to jab at them now, because that didn't happen, because I did make it on my own, But, obviously I guess I do carry a little bit of something there. But I don't hate True Green at all. They're a great company. They fill a need. And one of the things they do is they create customers for me, because people realize that they want more than what True Green can offer. And the only way they're going to get more is if they do it themselves. So they come to me. We've even heard in this podcast, 1 or 2 people, I get it all the time. I used to have True Green. Now I'm doing it myself. Okay, great. Doesn't mean True Green did anything wrong necessarily. Well, one guy said they ghosted, but ghosting a lawn is not, that's not True Green's fault. That's poor character on the applicator's fault. That's a jerk person. That's a liar is what that is. That doesn't have anything to do with True Green. But, they can only do so much. They can only get so much done when they're at your property every 6 weeks. It's just, they're not there every day like you are. So you could always do a better job. I've been through that before. But you should go work at True Green, because it's going to do a couple things. The first thing is you're going to learn how to spray, and you're going to learn how to spray by saving money. You're going to learn about products. You're going to learn about pumps. You're going to learn about spreaders. You're going to learn how much goes down and what result happens. You're going to have a route of, depending how big the lawns are, anywhere from 300, maybe 700 customers. If you have small lawns in Chicago, our guys carried 1,200 customers on postage stamps. And you're going to get to see, I applied Fert, here's what happened. I killed weeds, here's what happened. I used this product, it didn't work. I used this product, it did. Here's the weather patterns, the other thing. Because that's the other thing. You don't have to be an expert on every single grass type. You only need to be an expert on the grass types that grow in your area in Utah, which is almost all cool season turf, I'm assuming. Maybe out in the desert there's some other stuff, but you don't have to be an expert on St. Augustine grass if you live in Utah. So don't think you have to learn it all. And the same with the weeds and the trees and the shrubs and the weather patterns and the soil types. You only really have to be an expert on the local area that you live in. So don't think you have to learn everything. And one of the ways to learn that is with True Green. I promise you, it's great training. And you may end up wanting to stay. I have some of my best friends in the world that are general managers of True Green branches. They make $95,000 a year. They have great lives. They work with people. They mentor people. They help them. They have company truck. They have great benefits. There's a lot of good reasons to work for True Green. If you want to move, there's a branch in every state, so you can move. keep your job. There's a lot of things. You're going to learn the business side too. You're going to, if you stay long, not in 2 years, you won't. But if you stay a little longer, you learn how to run a P&L. You learn how to manage chemical cost. You learn how to manage labor cost. Because the thing about owning a spray business, the two biggest things you have are your labor cost and your chemical cost. If you can keep those in line, you'll have a profitable business. So there's a lot of things that you'll learn working for TruGreen, routing, how tight routes matter, equipment. I could just name so many things. So I recommend you go work there for 2 years, maybe 3, maybe 5. I mean, you sound like a young fella. If you're 21 years old, go work there for 4 years. You'll be 25 when you're done. Not a big deal. Call that your college, okay? And then when you get out, you do it better. So many guys that I meet that have successful spray businesses now started at TruGreen. So many. Even though nowadays, there's a lot that skipped that and started right on their own because people are a lot ballsier nowadays because you do have the internet to learn things. You didn't have that. Back in the 90s when I started, I couldn't go on the internet and see other people doing spray businesses, so I had zero chance of figuring anything out about it unless I met somebody to teach me. I actually just learned from TruGreen. So that's why I recommend doing that as a first resort. I think it's a good idea. The other thing is if you are going to start a business, you're probably not going to want to just do spray work, even though I recommend that's where you put most of your effort. The spray business is much more profitable than maintenance, which is mowing weekly. A lot less headaches. You can do it with one-man crews instead of 2. Mowing and maintenance, if you get bigger, you're going to have 2-man crews. There's a lot more equipment you got to do, a lot of things. So you're going to get a lot more profit out of spray work. For sure you are. You got to realize it takes 2 guys, say a 5,000 square foot lawn, and you got to send 2 people out there. They can get it done in 15 minutes. That's fine. And they might get $35 or $40, say $40 for that 5,000 square foot lawn, 2 guys and all that equipment. Whereas you can go spray that same lawn, and you can spray that same lawn in like 5 or 6 minutes, and you can get $50 or $60 for it. So, that's just the difference. So there's other things too. Route density, though, it makes a difference in all of it. But I do recommend you have some maintenance at first because maintenance is steady revenue. It's recurring revenue. So you're going to want to do some maintenance at first. And I recommend if you want to learn about maintenance, by the way, you may want to get into landscape construction as well. Big money there. It's not recurring revenue necessarily, even though you can find ways to get recurring revenue out of it. But it's big revenue. Patios, porches, decks, retaining walls, all that kind of stuff. But 3 resources I would look at online. Stan the Dirt Monkey. He has Dirt Monkey University. That guy is the real deal. He doesn't talk about it much, but that dude is a for sure engineer, a real engineer. He knows what he's doing. So I would go and look at Dirt Monkey University. I bet you could learn a lot there. Brian's Lawn Maintenance. He has the Entrepreneur program. Another really good guy. I've watched him build his business online over the years. Really come a long way. And I bet you could learn a lot in there. And then you also want to look at Keith Kalfas. He has a Kajabi site where you can learn marketing and things. Keith's been around a long time. He's one of the OGs and knows a lot about marketing. So those are some courses that you could take online and learn from guys that are actually in the business now and teaching you from their perspective. So I think that's a lot of good information there. And Spencer, I hope that helps you out. And again, thanks for listening. And I hope that you build a really big business someday. All right, next, let's go to somebody that has shown they could cure their dollar spot disease. I don't think dollar spot's probably as prevalent right now as we're into August, but I figured I would show you some things. So here comes from Kevin P. Says, good morning. I just wanted to thank you again for your help. He had emailed in and asked me a question. He had brown spots in his lawn, and I identified it for him as dollar spot, and he treated it like I said. So I just wanted to call in and thank you again for your help. I'm back in business, and I'm dominating again after treating the fungus. I don't think I'll need another app of propiconazole at this time. I received the new Carbon X from you about a week ago. Can't wait to throw her down and try it out. August 20th, which is tomorrow, will be 4 weeks since my last Fert app, so I'm going to push it hard and push it into the cooler parts of the year. Included is an update photo, Kevin. So I want to, if you're on YouTube, you'll see where his lawn was and where it is now. That's just after a couple of weeks. And the way that you stop the dollar spot, and then I'm going to tell you what to do next year. So the way you stop dollar spot is when you see it, it looks terrible. That's the thing. Dollar spot comes on fast, and boy, does it look bad. Man, when I worked for TruGreen, people get so angry when they had dollar spot. And we didn't really treat for fungus. We just didn't. We tell them to wait it out. It was just an expense that we couldn't incur. I don't know. They may do it now, but boy, people that would be pissed. I would put Banner Max down, which is propiconazole, and it cures it up in like 15 days, 14 days, maybe even sooner sometimes. But you also want to put down a good shot of nitrogen. You do not want to put down azoxystrobin. It has no effect on dollar spots. So that goes back to, and that's what he did here. He just put down the propiconazole, a little fert over there, and it clears it right up. And it really does. Ben the Lawn Guardian also had some challenges, and same thing. He got his cleared up real nice. So you can see the picture there if you're on YouTube's. Now, going into next year, though, this one will come back year after year. So when you know you've had dollar spot like this, what you want to do is the next year, when the spring starts to leave and you see that the summer's going to start coming in and you're going to get those first days up over 85 heading towards 90, you got to watch the weather. That's when you put your first app of propiconazole. No more bulletproof strategy for you. You don't want azoxystrobin at all. You want the propiconazole only, and when you're doing preventative, it's a preventative rate. It's a heavier rate. You can use, or a lighter rate, I'm sorry. You could use liquid, or you can use granular at your preventative, but you want to get that down the week or two preceding when you can see the weather starting to change. And you may need to reapply that every 14 to 21 days. It just depends what formulation you're using and how often it gives you, but those are your preventatives, and you're going to run that all the way through July. But you got to realize, I mean, if you're starting this in June and you're doing it every 2 or 3 weeks, it's like 3 apps. It's not that much. It sounds like, oh my God, I could do this all the time. No, it's like 3 apps of propiconazole, and you'll be able to prevent that dollar spot in the future years. This is why it's important to have our app, the Yard Mastery app, because you can make these notes in your lawn journal. Hey, I had this. I got to make sure I do this. I got to put a reminder in to make sure I do that. And we do have that functionality in there. I'm pretty sure if it's not, it should be in there real soon, where you can set yourself a reminder. I know it'll be in there soon if it's not there now, but you can set yourself a reminder. Hey, put down this at this time. Put this down at that time. That's one of the improvements the team put in. So that is coming up. Great stuff. All right, next, let's go to a recording. This is Dan. He's in Indiana, and he has some clay soil.
Hi, Alan. This is Daniel from the South Bend, Indiana area, and I just wanted to ask you a question about heavy type clay soils. I noticed that I was dealing with a lot of just overwatering, and I had to basically cut back on my watering in order for the clay to kind of absorb some of the water. Is this something I can remedy with maybe like potash? I did some research, and they said that you could use like basically like, you know, your ash from your charcoal briquettes to spread it across your lawn. That'll help break down the clay. My question is basically, what is the best thing to use to break down this heavy clay that I'm dealing with? And thank you for all that you do, sir. Bye.
All right, Dan, thanks for calling me sir. Yeah, so I dealt with this very similar clay over by Crown Point, Indiana, and I ended up loving it. I didn't like it at first, so I'll tell you a quick story. When I first moved into my house, 2004-5, and it was bare dirt, and I mean, I didn't really think about what the clay was, and I stepped on it, and then I went inside the house and walked on the carpet and tracked it all over the carpet. Oh, my God. I hated the clay ever since then. I know. Why don't you take your shoes off in your new house, dummy? I don't know. It was terrible. But anyway, yeah, that clay's nasty, but I end up loving the clay soil. It's actually my favorite lawn soil. And I actually have clay here, believe it or not. I live north of the Manatee River, and we have clay here. It's just, there's weird deposits in Florida of certain things. If you see all the megalodon teeth that are being found, not mastodon, megalodon, big shark's teeth that are being found, those are found all around right here where I live. Used to be some sort of mating ground back 20 bazillion years ago or something. But they're just under the clay layer. If you dig down about 3 feet, you hit sand here. Whereas south of the Manatee River, where I take care of my church property, that's all sand over there. And the Freedom Factory, that's all sand, like literal, like a brownish sand, gray sand. It's really weird. If I showed you people, you'd be like, whoa, that's your soil? It's crazy. Very fine sandy soil. So I have a little both, but I don't mind the clay. Kind of like it, holds things in, but it does have its challenges. So we'll go back to the old charcoal thing, because you don't want to use charcoal. What you want to use is biochar. Charcoal, yeah, I mean, that'd take a lot of charcoal briquettes, man, but it'll actually absorb the stuff out of the soil rather than help it. And it would just take a lot of that to do it. But that's why we do everything with biochar. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Biochar is just charged, essentially. But we'll go back to this. So the first thing you want to do, and this is how I did it back in Indiana to make my clay soil great, is I used Milorganite. And people ask me, do you still work with Milorganite? I do. We actually have a contest we're going to announce with Milorganite coming up. Fun, where you guys are going to be able to earn or win some lawn coaching. I love Milorganite. Still love it. Used it as my last app. If you guys look back at my lawn or at my applications this year, my last app that I could do on Memorial Day before the blackout was a Milo app. It works great if you can get it. Milorganite will actually help feed your soil. It's an organic, and it gets into that clay and it helps to change the composition of it, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time. So I would do that. You could use other organic fertilizers as well. You can use any fertilizer that is based in biochar as well. So all of the carbon earth stuff that we have based in biochar, the biochar is infused with chicken poo, which is a natural or an organic. It's not organic, but it's natural. So that biochar, chicken poo, keep using those. They're in every one of our fertilizers. I know there's people out there now that will tell you that you have to buy the biochar separately. You can, and we have that too, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But if you use any of the carbon earth products, they have biochar built into all of them. So you're always getting biochar, you're always getting biostimulants, plus your NP and K, depending which one you get, plus your micronutrients, plus a biostimulant on top of that. They really do have everything in them, those products do. If you're using the liquids, if you're using the Green County, those all have humic acid in them, which is another source for carbon. And that's what you want to do. You want to get the carbon packed in. If you have the biostimulant pack, that will improve the clay soil, not overnight, but literally within a year it will. You'll notice a difference. It takes a good year. Now, I have some people that are in our groups, they hammer it in, man. They're putting the stuff in every month, and it works faster. But you don't have to do that. Just, couple 2-tree here, couple 2-tree there. We send you a little schedule to go with. It will improve the soil over time. But the two biggest ones that are in there that you can use for clay soil is the aerate, the liquid aeration. It is potassium hydroxide. Now, that sounds, people are like, oh my gosh, what does that do? Well, potassium hydroxide, when you get it down in the soil, you have to have some soil moisture there, and you have to water it in to drive it down, but it breaks bonds in the soil. That's what it does. That's why we also use it to clean tanks, because it releases all of the stains and everything out of tanks. It'll do the same thing in the soil. It kind of releases things. It breaks them up. It's like a very mild chemical reaction. And when bonds are broken, molecules bond together, when that potassium hydroxide breaks those bonds, it creates space. And then along inside the liquid aeration is 8% humic acid. That's a carbon source. Those are carbon particles, right, from humus, and those are packed into that space. So instead of having this super tightly packed clay, what you have now is you have a chemical reaction that breaks bonds at the microscopic level and then packs in carbon, and that creates space in that soil, and that's what's going to loosen that clay up over time. Now, the other thing that we recommend you do at the same time is, if you want to use what we call the compaction cure, is you throw some RGS in there. RGS has more humic. It also has fulvic. It's not on the label, but it is in there, and it always has been. I think they took it off just because there's certain states that didn't like the word fulvic, but there is always fulvic riding along with it. And so that adds another carbon source, but it also has the sea kelp. What the sea kelp does is it stimulates the grass to send roots down. So now the potassium hydroxide is creating space, and it's packing in carbon. And then you have the sea kelp, the cytokines, that acidophilus nodosum, or whatever the heck they call it. Those are those hormones that are stimulating roots to push down into that looser soil. That's why it's the compaction cure. Hammer that in, man, twice in the spring, twice in the fall. Hammer that in. Make sure there's some soil moisture present when you do it, and make sure you water it in. It only takes a little bit of time, and that will improve it. Now, one other way that you can improve the soil a lot quicker, if you want to, Dan, in addition to using Milorganite or other organic fertilizers and using the biochar-based fertilizers and or the biostimulant pack, all of that's going to make the soil better. The third thing you can do is, if you are aerating, is you can get the separate biochar product that we have. It's called Xsoil. And it is basically just the base material that isn't as finely prilled. It's the base material of the carbon earth products. It's the biochar infused with the chicken poo. That's why it's charged. And you can see it. It's like nuggets. It looks like charcoal. It doesn't smell like that. Let me just tell you, Xsoil smells like success. Holy shnikes, man. It will bring all the flies to the yard. But it doesn't last long. It only lasts an hour or so, and then the smell's gone. It's really weird. But chicken poo is stinky stuff. But if it stinks, that means it's working. You know what I'm saying? Listen, if your fertilizer stinks, it's working. Trust me on that, okay? It is what it is. So put that in. So you'd aerate, open up those holes, and then put the Xsoil down. That is all by itself 10 to 12 pounds per thousand, or 10 to 20 pounds per thousand, as much as you want. That'll sweep directly in those holes. Then as you water, they'll close back up, and now you've literally filled those holes with that biochar. That's a way to get it done even quicker. And then you could also spray the biostimulants on top of all that if you want. So those are some quick ways to improve that clay soil. Just depends how you want to do it. Really, the biostimulant pack and using the carbon earth fertilizers and the Milorganite, that's the way that most people have done it here in the community. And you can just look at all the different pictures and the results people get. It's incredible. I never believed it, honestly. I came from True Green, where we just, starter fert fixes everything, all salty ferts all the time, just, throw more nitrogen at it, whatever. And Man, since coming involved with these guys, with John Perry, and learning from him and going to Longology for a couple years now, and then learning from Matt Martin and hanging out with him, there's so many better ways to do it. And like I told you guys before, I go to the sod farms. The sod farms, they laugh. Humic acid, we've been using that for years. Ain't no secret, bro. So, yeah, funny stuff. All right, last one. Let's go to Bill in Rochester, New York.
Hello, Alan. This is Bill calling from Rochester, New York. My yard is a 5,000 square foot front lawn that I'm working on right now, and it was mostly Kentucky bluegrass. I purchased an expensive drought-resistant Kentucky bluegrass and a blue and rye combination, equally as expensive, 2 years ago. It was basically a clay base, which you advised me I could grow grass on, which it does, and it comes in very nice in the fall and very nice in the spring, but the sunlight hits it from early morning until probably 1, 2. We don't get any shade till about 3 in the afternoon, so it doesn't hold up well. I'd like to overseed this year, thatch and overseed with a tall turf type, get another mixture in there. I mow it 4 to 4.5 inches, and it's very thick, but I have a problem with POA. There was a lot of POA in that seed. It's not concentrated in any one area. It's throughout, and that leaves a lot of brown stalks all year long after it dies off. So what I'd like to do is get rid of that. I know I can't go with the prodiamine this fall. What should I do if I overseed to try and fight the POA next spring? I've sprayed it with Tenacity. It kills it. But I've also, seen there's quite a bit of it, and I cannot kill it all. So what would you advise in the spring to fight the POA if I overseed and forget the pre-emergent this fall? The other problem I have is it's called barnyard grass popping up in areas. How do I kill that? I've tried Tenacity. I've tried sedge hammer. I've tried sedge ender while I'm spraying for sedge. Nothing seems to dent it. If you could give me some advice on what to do, it'd be appreciated. Thanks again for all your help.
All right, Bill. So we got a few different things going on here. Now, there's a kind of a continuing theme here that we've had, and I'm glad that Bill called in with this question about the POA and should I seed or should I not seed? What decisions? There's always these decisions to make, right? And this is like any relationship. There's never a perfect decision. There's always some give and take in a relationship, right? Especially relationships with people. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and sometimes you have to take a hurt. Sometimes they have to take a hurt. Sometimes you get the win. Sometimes they get the win. Sometimes you share in the win. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? So let's talk about it. So I'm going to give Bill two choices here. So before we do that though, let's talk about Poa annua one more time. So what is Poa annua? So it's annual bluegrass, and it germinates in the fall as soil temperatures fall to 70. So that's a very recurring temperature that we talk about. Germinates in the fall and it grows, and then it lives over the winter. In the spring it rages and it grows really, really fast and all through summer. And then in the summer it'll sprout little seeds. It'll drop those seeds and then it dies. Okay. And I showed it in my video when I went to Salt Lake. It doesn't blend in. Sometimes it'll live longer or shorter. Sometimes it'll stay alive in the summer longer or in the shade, but it doesn't blend in. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look the same. And as he's saying, it's dying off and it's leaving spots. So what can you do? Well, the general way that you're going to stop Poa annua then is to put down pre-emergent herbicides, prodiamine and or dithiopyr in the fall as soil temperatures fall to 70, and stop it. Just like we do crabgrass in the spring. You treat it the same way, except you do the pre-emergence in the fall. However, the other challenge that Bill has is he's got these expensive grasses that they're kind of checking out in the summer. Even though one of them, he said, is supposed to be drought tolerant and was very expensive, it's still checking out in the summer. And the term drought tolerant, it's kind of a marketing thing, right? I mean, again, there's just nothing that's going to do well when you get over 95. But he's like, hey, I want to add some fescue in and maybe help with that. So choice number one is that you do go ahead and seed, and then you're going to use Tenacity at the time of seeding. Tenacity will act as a pre-emergent and suppress Poa annua for 30 days. Now, it's not going to stop it all, but it's something to help with, okay? That's your choice number one. You're still going to have to deal with Poa next year. You're going to have to just use Tenacity to kill it as a post-emergent, and it's just going to go through all that trouble again. I would actually recommend, though, Bill, that you go with choice number two here, okay? Because it seems like your lawn is already fairly thick. And when your lawn is already fairly thick, if you overseed with some turf-type tall fescue, let's say that replaces 15% of the lawn. Well, that's not enough to notice a difference in heat, right? So I would wonder why you would want to invest the extra money to try to make this grass, to add something in that's more drought tolerant, when really you could just work on the grass you have and make it more drought tolerant as it is. In other words, don't try to seed your way into drought tolerance, or don't try to seed your way into heat tolerance, especially knowing that you have Poa annua that's also competing in there. I would rather see you do this. I would rather see you go on defense right now, because you can wipe out a Poa annua problem. This is assuming it's not Poa trivialis, which is perennial. You can wipe out a Poa annua problem in 3 to 4 years, just like you can crabgrass. If you go pre-emergent every single fall, heavy pre-emergence every single fall time, pre-emergent, it really, as soil temperature, just as you catch a whiff in the air that soil temperature might be close to 70, get that pre-emergent down, heavy. 4 pounds per thousand on the dithiopyr. It'll last you plenty of long enough time. Okay, and then in the spring too, because sometimes some late bloomers will come up. But you're going to put pre-emergent down in the spring for crabgrass, and it will take care of any late bloomer Poa annua. If you do that for the next 3 to 4 years, what you'll do is the majority of the seeds will germinate that are eligible for germination will, because the thing about Poa annua seeds is they'll stay in the soil for several years. It's not like the one drops this year and germinates the next year, and 100% of the ones that drop this year germinate the next year. It doesn't work that way. They hang out, they'll wait. Some get deeper, some get shorter. Some are lazy, some are fast bloomers, whatever. That's just how seeds work, right? So the fact that you need 3 or 4 years to make sure they've all germinated their way out, they've kind of all burned themselves out, I would go for that. That is what I would do. And in fact, if 35 or 45 days after your first application of dithiopyr, if it's still sniffing over 60 in the soil, I would put another application down just to be sure. 3 or 4 years, eliminate that. Focus on that problem first. Now, back to the summers, that current grass you have, there's some things you can still do to hedge your bets on that. And I would work on really driving those deep roots. I would work on using sea kelp to drive those roots deep. Get as much carbon material into that soil. When you come up into the summer, when you know you're going to hit that hot period where every year it seems to start to check out, get some hydrotane down. Hydrotane can go a long way to helping your lawn during the heat stressed times. Make sure your irrigation is in line. Again, there's not much you're going to do if it gets over 95, but you can really work on those deeper roots. I will say that when I was in Salt Lake, that it was over in the 90s, and that Kentucky bluegrass there was all green. Now, it didn't have the humidity. The humidity is really what it is. It's the humidity just burns things down. It just burns things down to the ground. It's pretty crazy. But that's what I would do. I would work on that. I would focus on one thing at a time. Give yourself 3 or 4 years where maybe you're going to struggle in the summer. Use some hydrotane. Do what you can. But get rid of that Poa annua. Then, after that 4-year mark, when you feel like, all right, I've defeated the Poa annua, then you go off after and start working on maybe adding in some different cultivars or some different grass types like turf-type tall fescue that are going to be able to help withstand the heat. The idea being, I started this little conversation out as relationships. We don't have to fix everything in the lawn in one season, not even 2 seasons. Sometimes things in a relationship can take a long time to fix. For those of you that have been married for a long time, you know that there are things about your spouse that may have taken a decade to fix. I don't want to start naming what those are, but you know. So I'm just saying, look at it that way. You're going to be in this house for a long time, so work on that lawn over the years. Work on one problem at a time. Get that problem licked. It won't come back, and then you can work on the next things. Now, barnyard grass. Barnyard grass is it's an annual also. Thank God. Annuals are easier to take care of, and it mirrors crabgrass. So the thing you want to do with barnyard grass is just make sure you definitely are getting your pre-emergence down, do your split applications in spring, and you should be able to stop the good majority of that. Now, if that's not happening, then I would question whether it's barnyard grass or not. It might be something else. However, if you do see it, the product that you want to use against barnyard grass is called Q4+. It's got 2,4-D at 11%, which is nice and high. It's got dicamba, quinclorac, and sulfentrazone. Q4 will do really well against barnyard grass. By the way, it's going to kill a whole lot of other stuff too. So it can be, and it's not that expensive. You can get it in smaller quantities. So Q4+. It's kind of similar to Speed Zone, but it's got the carfentrazone instead of sulfentrazone, and and quinclorac in there. So that's what's going to really help you with that barnyard grass. It will also kill crabgrass and, like I said, a whole bunch of other things. So if you need post-emergent against barnyard grass, that's what you want to go with. Whoa, I probably just burned out your ears there, but all right. That's going to end the podcast for this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. This has been Lawns Across America, episode 35. I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thanks for watching, listening. I'll see you in the lawn.